marvelous techniques are available for indicating mathematical concepts by way of the television screen. Another type of card presentation which can be used would be referred to as a revealer type visual card, and an example of this sort of item could be given. Suppose we are considering the particular lesson, the propositions P and Q, and the combination P or Q. P, Q, and P or Q. Now, we can tell the student that there are various combinations of P and the statement Q, which would lead to a particular property about the statement P or Q. In particular, P might be true, and Q might be true, and the combination P or Q, in this case, would be true. And as we discuss various possibilities, they could be illustrated, as you see appearing on the screen, in the revealer type of camera card. True or false, yielding a true statement, and so on and so forth. This could be continued in the fashion that you might here. This illustrates, then, a great many of the card techniques which are available to an instructor in mathematics who has television available and who has a team with which to work, presenting the material in whatever fanciful way he can think of, and in whatever fashion may bring it across to the student in a very outstanding visual fashion. Now, in order to conclude this particular presentation, it would be of interest, I believe, to mention from our experience some of the advantages and disadvantages of television instruction in general. We have indicated many of the techniques and the particular approach which we have used in forming our course, and it would be of interest, I think, to note some of the advantages and disadvantages. Certainly, there are both present. There are advantages as well as disadvantages, and it's actually up to one individual or one department to decide which outweigh the other. I will let you form your own conclusion based upon our presentation here and upon the comments that I will make upon the advantages and disadvantages individually. Suppose, first of all, we take a look at the disadvantages of televised instruction in mathematics. There are several, and suppose one at a time, beginning with questions. Now, in particular, what do we mean when we say that questions forms a disadvantage? We mean simply that questions cannot be asked during the television lecture presentation. Next, as a disadvantage, we list student contact. Student contact is a disadvantage. By this, we simply mean that students have no direct contact with the television instructor. Next, we list concentrated presentation as a disadvantage. By concentrated presentation, as you see in our sketches here, giving some idea about what we are talking about, concentrated presentation is necessary due to the limited lecture time. And again, our art shop has enabled us to visualize these advantages and disadvantages. Disadvantages, number 4, rigid schedule. Now, rigid schedule simply indicates that there is a pre-specified day-by-day lesson plan which is to be followed in the course of the television instruction. Next, rigid material is listed as a disadvantage. As illustrated here, we simply mean that although individual lessons can be changed by retaking, a complete series is tied to a specific text and a specific course outline. Then, finally, cost is a factor which would be listed as a disadvantage. Visually, we might indicate that as you see here, and we're simply indicating primarily that initial equipment costs are very high in something of this nature. So in particular, there are disadvantages, and the major ones we have attempted to list, clarify in this particular list of disadvantages. On the other hand, certainly there are some very important advantages also in instruction by television, and as we are primarily interested in mathematical instruction by way of television. Advantages we will list and explain one at a time as we did disadvantages. First of all, uniform presentation is a very definite advantage of mathematics by television. In other words, uniform presentation is given to a large group of students. Secondly, efficiency is listed as an advantage. Visually, you can see how we interpret efficiency, and what we mean here simply is that there is one careful preparation for a large number of sections of students. Visual techniques certainly provide a group of advantages for mathematics television instruction. Visually, we might indicate, as we have throughout the program, many of the visual techniques which are available to an instructor in mathematics. The method of replacing the blackboard, the cards, the model, the videotapes, and so on and so forth. Summing up, we might simply say that visual techniques speak for themselves. We have placed a great deal of emphasis on that throughout the presentation here. Fourth, under advantages, is the advantage of faculty teaching. Now, faculty teaching is, again, more or less self-explanatory. We might visualize faculty teaching, as you see here, and simply note that an experienced and talented instructor can be used for a large number of classes and a large number of students. Next, under advantages, we list cost. Now, this may seem odd at first because we listed cost under disadvantages, and we were indicating that the initial cost was high. However, let's see exactly what we mean by saying that cost can also be an advantage. An indication of this is given visually, and explicitly we mean that the cost factor decreases with time as staffing expense savings offset the initial expenses. In other words, there is a point whereby the savings from not having to hire a large number of staff members for this particular area can be offset, or can offset, the initial expense. Finally, we have listed under advantages organization. Organization might be visualized in the following fashion. Now, by organization, we simply mean that a presentation can be well organized and very carefully prepared with every effort made to strive for clarity. So we have a large number of advantages, offsetting, in some sense perhaps, the disadvantages of mathematics instruction by way of television. Our experiences generally have been very favorable. the advantage of having talented instructors and outstanding visual techniques available for presentation to the students makes the television course somewhat unusual in nature, in that it can affect a large number of students with a very high level of instruction. The disadvantages also must be weighed, of course, and we expect that, generally speaking, the advantages will offset the disadvantages, and we note that this seems to be the general interpretation as more and more schools attempt to use this particular teaching technique. Finally, we might bring some human interest into the particular situation here by asking a student who has just had the television mathematics course something about his experience. In particular, suppose we ask this gentleman whether, having had the televised math course, he would now care to switch back to a conventional type of presentation.